can go ahead and present the loving problem, sure. I mean,
Yeah. Um, I guess we could start. We could start with this. Um, yeah. I'll just give you a set of premises.
mhm,
We could just start with premise one.
of course.
Premise one is that God is absolutely simple.
I reject
Premise
premise
two,
one.
God. You reject premise one?
Yeah, I don't believe God is absolutely simple.
Okay. Premise two, God has perfect intellect.
Okay.
I'll motivate the premises after. But
Yeah, of course, of course.
premise
If we
three,
just read it off
perfect
and then I'll
intellect.
disagree.
Bet. Premise three, a perfect intellect necessarily has a perfect concept of itself. Premise four, a perfect concept of God must be identical to God's, or must be identical in nature to God's essence. Premise five, if a concept is identical in essence to a subsequent subject and exists necessarily, it is itself a subsistent person. Premise six, the subsistent concept that proceeds from God's intellect is traditionally called the Son, which is based, by the way. That's the first argument. And you
Okay, sure.
reject premise one. Actually, let me write that down. Let me open a Google Doc.
Wait, let me know
So,
the motivations for premise one specifically, because I wait. I should have just typed down the premises so we could have went one by one. But I get the gist of it because I've heard this argument before. Yeah, the loving argument. It's an example given by Augustine. It's an analogy for the Trinity, and it was, I guess, kind of converted into an argument to prove a multitude of persons within the essence of God. Um.
yup. Kind
Uh.
of. This is Edward Fesser, but similar.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's not identical, but yeah, it kind of branches off of the analogy that Augustine gives. But uh. Okay, so premise one was God is absolutely simple. What's the argument for premise one? Or I guess the
Yeah.
reductio to me rejecting it.
Yeah. So it's kind of robust, but it starts off so a necessary being cannot be a composite
Okay.
because anything composite depends on parts, and
Yes.
parts require a cause to combine them. Okay, we agree on that.
Yes, yes. If something is composite, it's contingent. It's not necessary.
Okay, great. Therefore, the first cause must be non-composite. That's what it means to be
Yeah.
absolutely simple. Okay, so you
No,
agree then?
that's not what it means to be absolutely simple because absolute divine simplicity is not just a negation of composition, but also a negation between complete,
Oh no, no,
all
I'm
real
I'm
distinction within
orthodox.
God.
No, I'm worth it. I'm not talking about
Okay,
the.
then I wouldn't say absolutely simple. I would just say God is simple, because ADS also
That's
negates
fine.
real distinction within God. But yeah, no, uh, I don't believe. Wait, hold on. Do you believe that there's no real distinction within God?
No real distinction. It depends on how that's articulated. On some articulations, I agree. On some, I disagree.
Okay. So with God being, I guess to you, simple, yeah, I negate composition. But what exactly is simplicity to you? Is it just a negation of composition?
Yeah, just non-composite.
Okay, sure then. Yeah, I agree with premise one then.
All right, great, fantastic.
All right, and then premise two was God has like perfect knowledge of himself. He has perfect intellect, and then premise three was God has like a perfect knowledge of himself in particular. Correct?
Yeah. Premise two was well, no, yeah. Premise two is God is perfect intellect. Premise three, a perfect intellect necessarily has a perfect concept of itself.
Okay,
That's
perfect. And then
premise.
what was premise four?
A concept of God or a perfect concept of God must be identical in nature to God's essence.
Okay, perfect. So if God has knowledge of himself, essentially what's being known has to be identical to what is knowing. Correct?
Not really.
No, I mean like if God knows himself, then
Mm-hmm.
that which is known, the contents of that which is known, is going to be ontologically reduced to the same exact thing. The referent is going to be God. So yes, they're going to be identical within
Yeah,
reality.
yeah,
Yeah, they're going to be
yeah,
identical
yeah.
within reality. Yeah.
Okay. Then premise five, if a concept is identical in essence to a subsistent subject and exists necessarily, it itself is a subsistent person.
Okay, I reject that, but I also kind of disagree with the terminology because concept is a bit interesting. I'm saying the contents of God's knowledge. So if God knows himself, the contents of that knowledge are going to be ontologically reduced to his being, yes. But what's the argument that because God is now identical to the contents of this knowledge, it's necessarily going to generate a second person within his nature? What's the motivation for that?
I know, not a second person.
Or sorry, a
It is
person. It's gonna. Yeah, yeah,
identical.
but you said it was the son, so I'm saying second person.
I don't know. It itself is a subsistent person. The
Oh,
knowledge is a subsistent person. So
knowledge
like
is a
second
subsistent
is
person? Yeah,
God.
I negate that. What's the motivation for that?
Okay. We could say let's do this. Okay. Um. Hmm. Well, actually, we could just say that a person I mean, do you accept the traditional metaphysical semantics for person? Because that's just a
What,
subsistent.
like a rational being?
No, a subsistent relation. The metaphysical semantics.
No. I don't grant personhood to be a subsistent relation. No, I grant personhood to be a rational. If something is a person, it's a rational being. That's the definition that I uphold.
Okay.
I like analytic philosophy, bro.
Oh my god.
It's
Right now.
man.
Let's see. Yeah, we're let's see.
Aang solos, by the way.
Yeah, Aang does solo. That's facts. I was actually gonna address the name. The name is like.
Bro, the
Aang
name is
solo.
tough, man. I've had this name for like almost 2 years too.
Aang solos. Aang solos.
I like Aang. I just think Korra has aura, bro. What can I say? But hold on. Somebody said something else. Let me see. By the way, oh my goodness, can the Muslims stop blaspheming in the comments? Lord have mercy. Do not blaspheme, because you're gonna get muted. Okay. Thank you, Yusuf. I appreciate it. Please, Muslims, if the Christians are being respectful, you have no reason to blaspheme. No reason. We don't do them things. We're not like that, bro.
Okay. Well, I guess I would ask. Well, I'm gonna have to motivate it then, because the semantics should obviously be a subsistent relation. But you're saying it's a mind, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying that a subsistent relation, I don't grant that to be a person. Because I believe that in order for something to be a person, its intellect, like it must have an individual intellect in order for something to be a person. So I disagree with your definition.
Well, a subsistent relation can have an individual intellect, but you're
Yeah,
saying a
but
person.
a subsistent relation doesn't always have an individual intellect. Saying that it's a necessary condition for something to be a person, it must necessarily have an intellect in and of itself.
But we could say a subsistent, actually.
Yeah, you can say that a subsistent relation has knowledge and it has a mind, but I'm saying that not every subsistent relation necessarily has to have a mind. I'm saying that in my worldview, this is a necessary condition to be a person.
Well, it depends on what it means to be a subsistent relation, then. So let's see.
Okay, what do you understand subsistent relation to mean then?
I'm about to look up Aquinas' semantics. He'll
No
cook.
worries. Wait, you're EO. What are you doing?
I don't care.
All right, fair enough, bro.
Oh, based. A subsistent relation is something that's identical to the substance of being and God's being itself. If it's identical to his substance, then it necessarily has a mind. Based.
Okay, I don't grant that either.
Grant what?
So, first off, I don't grant that knowledge in and of itself is identical to God's knowledge. I can say that a particular, for example, God's knowledge of himself is identical to God. But even then, that doesn't mean that it possesses rational nature. It's not rational.
What's not rational?
Knowledge is not rational.
I'm not saying
God
knowledge
is rational, yeah. That God is rational.
knowledge is irrational?
And you can say, yeah,
Knowledge is
God
irrational.
is a person. Yeah, I can say that God has knowledge of the fact that he exists. This knowledge, and when I say this knowledge, I'm saying the content of this knowledge. So when I say this is me negating multiplicity in and of itself. I'm saying that they're ontologically reduced to the exact same thing. The only thing that we'd be using to account for some sort of a distinction would be semantics. I'm implying some sort of a semantical distinction or like a virtual distinction as well. There would be a virtual distinction in this instance between the contents of the knowledge and God itself, but in reality they are reduced. Yeah, but I don't see, again, why would this imply personhood if I'm not granting your definition of person?
No, those are just the semantics. So what I'm doing now is pointing out the issue with your semantics specifically. But I'm motivating mine, but I'll point out the issue. So
Okay, then wait,
Say it.
restate Aquinas' definition, and then we can like break it down a bit more.
Yeah, subsistent relation is. Let's see. I have to find it. I just
You
exited
said
out of it.
subsistent relation. If something is going to be identical to the substance of God, then it's going to be a subsistence relation. Something along the lines of that.
Subsistent relation. Yeah, identical to the substance of being. Yeah.
Okay, identical to the substance of being. Okay, I don't grant that God is identical to being in the first place. I don't believe that God is identical to existence. So, yeah, by
I'm talking
definition.
about the Christian thesis right now,
Sorry?
specifically. I'm just talking about on the Christian thesis specifically.
Yeah, of course. But I would really disagree with this definition because me, as like a Muslim and an Athari at that, I don't believe that God is identical to existence.
Oh, you don't?
No, Muslims, at least Atharis, don't believe that God is identical to existence.
What do you think he's identical to?
I believe that God is identical to his own existence, but not existence generally.
That's interesting. What do you mean by existence generally?
When we say existence, like for example, what do you take existence to be? I know what Aquinas takes existence to be, but what do you take it to be?
Set of all real things?
Yeah, God is not identical to the set of all real things. Would you agree with that?
No, I think he is identical to the set of all real things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, then I would negate that. I don't believe that God is identical to the set of all real things. I don't believe that. Yeah, that sounds like gibberish to me, to be honest with you. Sorry?
Which real thing isn't part of the set?
Which real thing isn't part of the set? Anything which is extrinsic to him.
Yeah, like what are those things?
For example, creation. Creation's extrinsic to God.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a view. That's a view.
That's a fun view as well.
You think God's a person, right?
Yeah, I believe I believe that God's a rational being. Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you think a mind's a mental faculty?
Do I believe a mind is what?
Do you think a mind is a mental faculty?
Mental faculty? Wait, just to reduce that a bit more.
It's kind of hard to reduce. I can tell you what it implies. It would imply. Actually, let's see. We could say a stable capacity within a substance.
I don't know if I would say that. I wouldn't really. I don't know if I would apply that in my worldview. I'd look into it. A mental faculty. I mean, capacity is interesting because I believe that knowledge and like, I don't believe that knowledge is capacity. I believe that knowledge is active. God actively knows, but. So if you mean capacity, because capacity, when I hear capacity, I think potency. So, no, I don't believe that knowledge is potential. I believe that knowledge is actual.
No, not knowledge, mental faculty specifically. You could have mental
Yeah,
faculty.
but like, we're talking about God's knowledge, correct?
No, we're talking about minds. I just asked if you think God has a mind.
What is a mind? A mind is a mental faculty, correct?
Yep.
When I say mind, okay. Yeah, God, if you mean like God has the ability to know, sure, yeah. God has the ability to know. If that's a mind, yeah, God has the ability to know.
It's not really the ability to know.
The
Because you could have a
capacity to
mind
know.
without the ability to know.
Yeah, but when I predicate this onto God, wait, you can have a mind without the capacity to know?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example? And when I say capacity, it could be active or passive potential.
It's just, I can't really give you an example because I don't think the thing exists.
Yeah, of course, but what I'm saying is that by definition, by definition, because again, if I'm positing the definition that a mind is something that has the capacity to know things, then by definition, you saying, yeah, well, that there is a mind that.
Oh, no, I was talking about on my semantics. We have different ones. On your semantics,
I see. But Would you like to add on to the argument, or because we have some other Christians in the request, Saucy?
Oh, I lost on where we were. Oh yeah, we were talking about minds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were on the
What
love
is the
argument. Now we're
mind?
talking on minds. We're on premise 4, I think.
Okay. Let's see what premise 4 is. A perfect concept of God must be identical to its nature.
Sure, yeah.
Right. Must be identical in nature to God's essence.
If we're talking about the contents of the knowledge, yeah, the contents of God's knowledge, which would be God in this instance, would be ontologically reduced to his nature, yes. They would be identical, so sure.
Okay, great. And then premise 5 is the concept. Oh yeah, premise 5 was where.
Premise 5 was where we started, yeah, kind of arguing back and forth.
Okay, yeah. So we reject premise 5. If the concept is identical in essence to a subsistent subject and exists necessarily, it itself is a subsistent person.
Yeah, I contend with that. I don't believe that follows.
Okay. So what does motivate premise 5? Premise 5. Yeah, that's how I just define a person. A person, like in all the literature I've seen, it's just a subsistent relation. No. But then I just define subsistent relation in a way to where there necessarily is a mind, and then you would have no disagreement.
Yeah, you would have to do that, but the thing is, there would necessarily be a disagreement between the two of us.
Will the disagreement be you think a person is just that which a mind? If a subsistent relation necessarily has a mind, then there's no reason to reject this semantic.
Okay, yeah. Can you prove that a subsistent relation necessarily has a mind?
Yeah, it's just my semantics for subsistent relation. It has to be identical to being. I think God is being, and he has a mind. So then it just necessarily follows.
Yeah, but then I would still disagree with your definition of person, because now we're positing that personhood is now saying that God is going to be, it's going to be identical to being, and I negated that as well, which is kind of why we started arguing. Now, okay, perfect. You've proven that person necessarily contains a mind by virtue of the fact that it's identical to being, and only God is identical to existence, correct? Wait, do you believe that anything other than God is identical to existence?
I think it's a part of the set of things that exist.
Existence is... Wait, no, I'm asking, is God identical to existence?
Identical to existence?
Yes.
I think he's identical. Yeah, I think he's identical to existence.
Do you believe that anything other than God is identical to existence?
Not fully, no.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, I don't believe that God is identical to existence at all. Which is why now, yes, you've proven that person, subsistence relation would necessarily have a mind, but now I'm disagreeing and I'm saying, yeah, but I still reject your definition because I don't believe that there is God, which according to you is a set of subsistent relations, i.e. the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I don't believe that God is identical to existence. I think it's gibberish for something to be identical to existence, actually.
Okay, so this is kind of odd then. You don't think, so you're Muslim, you don't think God's identical to existence. What do you think existence is?
The set of all things that exist within reality.
Okay, great. So the set of all real things. That's
yes,
fantastic.
The set of all real things. Yeah, and I reject that. I don't believe that God is identical to the set of all real things.
Yeah, it's like, what real thing do you think God's not identical to?
Anything which is extrinsic to him, so creation.
Yeah, okay. Well, what do you think creation is?
What do I think relation is?
No, creation. Because you said you think creation is extrinsic to him. So what's creation?
And creation is not God. Creation is the result of God's command and will that he brought forth into existence.
What do you mean by extrinsic to him?
It does not subsist within his essence.
It doesn't subsist within his essence.
Yes. What are you typing? This guy's saucy, man.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of Muslim are you? Because I'm like...
I'm an Athari.
I'm an Athari.
Athari. You changed your profile picture? Yeah, I was looking for like a superhero type thing, and I realized I forgot that my name was Korra, and I was like, wait, Korra's the avatar. So I was like, oh, I'll put two and two together. Someone said you're a Jahmi for using ilm al-kalam. Dude, what? This isn't kalam, this is falsafa. Idiot.
I've never. That's strange. I did not know this was even a thing.
You didn't
But yeah,
know
cool.
that.
So I don't.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't think creation is sustained by God?
Yeah, creation is sustained by God. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's intrinsic to his essence.
No, not that it's intrinsic to his essence, but it subsists because of his essence. Like it's reliant on the essence. It's not
Yeah,
self-sufficient.
anything which is in existence outside of God's essence depends on God's essence. Yes, by virtue of the fact that he's the necessary being that is the also the first cause. Yeah.
Yeah, not just depends though, but subsist.
What does
Yeah,
it
let me
mean
just
to
have.
subsist? What does it mean to subsist?
Yeah, well, what I take it to mean to subsist is to not be self-reliant. Or sorry, what I take it. What I take it means. Sorry, what I take subsist to mean is that something is self-sufficient in like a real way.
Huh?
And
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't.
God's essence is the only thing that is self-sufficient in a real way. So
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anything else is self-sufficient. So that doesn't mean that it subsists within God. It just means that it exists. And it exists outside of God and it's sustained by God. This doesn't mean that it subsists within God.
what is? I don't even know what. Okay, so God's essence is the only thing which subsists, the only thing that is self-sufficient. Everything else is dependent on that essence.
Of course, yeah, but
How can you be dependent on something you exist outside of? Like that makes no sense.
how does it follow that in order for you to be dependent upon something, you need to be intrinsic to it? You would have to prove that.
Well, not intrinsic. No. Not, I'm not saying it's a necessary part of his nature.
No, no, I
That's not
don't.
what
I
I'm saying.
don't grant that intrinsic means that it's necessary. I don't believe that something needs to be necessary to be intrinsic. When I say intrinsic, I just mean subsist within.
Oh, then maybe we're just defining maybe we're defining real differently then.
Okay, what do you define real as?
I just think real is something which has obtained within nature. We could say something like that.
Okay, sure, yeah, we can agree on that definition. So what are we missing? Like what are we trampling on?
Yeah. So when I'm saying that, hold on, let's see. When I'm saying that the set of all real things are identical to God, I'm not saying they're identical to God's essence or nature. I'm saying they're identical to being, right? Like, and God is being.
Yeah, but
What it means to
I don't
exist is to
believe that
be.
things that exist are identical to being. I don't grant that.
That's what I think being is. I think being is literally just that which exists. Like, in order for you to exist,
Yeah,
you have to
because
be.
yeah. You have to be, but I do not exist by identity. I'm not identical to being.
You don't exist by identity.
And when I say identity, I'm talking about absolute identity. I'm not identical to being.
I don't know what absolute identity is.
Absolute identity, if X and Y are identical, then X and Y share every single predicate and property. That's absolute identity.
Oh, okay. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about absolute identity. I don't think you're absolutely identical to being. Like, obviously,
Of
you're not
course, yeah,
identical
but
to.
is God
Yeah, like, you're
absolutely...
different
Wait, let
from
me
the
ask you this.
tree.
Is God absolutely identical to being?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what does it mean to be absolutely identical to being?
We could just say it's numerically identical. They share all the same properties. Same thing you just said with X and Y.
Okay, what properties does being possess?
Oh, let's see. Um, well, actually, being possesses no properties because
Exactly.
God isn't composed of parts.
Yeah, but properties aren't parts. I don't grant that properties are parts.
What do you think a property is?
I can take a property to be like a descriptor, for example. Like my height, it is a property of mine, but it is not a part.
Then what's a part?
Okay, so I take the view that in order for something to be a part, it must be really distinct from the whole. It must be really distinct to all of the other quote unquote parts within this whole, and it must have some sort of ontological priority to the whole. Meaning that the whole is dependent upon the parts, and if the whole is dependent upon the parts must have necessarily pre-existed the whole. I don't believe that my height pre-existed me, therefore I don't believe that it meets the necessary conditions to be a part.
Okay, yeah, we can use this semantics. Then the properties true of being would be knowledge, power, life, hearing, seeing, blah 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 blah, all that stuff.
These are essential properties to existence or being.
No, not well. It depends what you mean by essential there.
Do you believe that in order for you to be, you must necessarily have all these properties?
No, rocks can't see. They're still a part of being.
Okay. So, what does it mean to participate in being if it's not to possess the properties that being implies? What does it mean?
You know, it means to possess some of the properties, not all. Right? If you have actually, if you can be predicated over at
So
all.
can
So if
I
you have
be
any,
like half being, for example?
no, you can, half being.
Can I be
You can
partial
be.
being? Can I partially be?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say you can exist within being, and what it means to exist is to be able to be predicated over, like to be existentially quantifiable. So any subject really is that which exists. So
Yeah,
anything
sure,
that which
but
is a
here's the thing.
subject is
I don't
is in
grant
being.
that being is a set of properties. I don't even believe that being is a property in and of itself.
No, being isn't a set of properties.
Yeah, but
Being,
you granted
being
that
is
if you exist, if you have being, and if you're identical to being identical to being is being identical to all of these properties that you stated.
no, I didn't say. Wait, no. God is identical to being, so
Yeah,
God
and
is identical to all these properties.
yeah,
That's
and
fine.
I
The
asked
things
you,
which
but
exist
I
within
asked
God
you,
don't have
what
to be
are the,
identical to
yeah,
all
but I asked you,
properties.
what are the properties that being like what is being, what does it mean to be? And you said, okay, to have X, Y, and Z properties, meaning that if something has being, then it also has these properties if it's identical to being. But I'm asking you, what does it mean to not be identical to being, and in a complete way, absolutely identical, and to not to not possess all of these properties? How can you possess being, and being implies these properties, and you do not also
Oh,
imply these
okay, yeah.
properties?
Being is not a
Sorry,
yeah.
possess these
Being isn't a
properties.
predicate. Yeah, being isn't a predicate. It's a state of existence, right? I think that's where the distinction is.
Yeah, but
I don't
yeah,
think
being
that. I
is
don't
a
think
state of
like
existence.
subject.
But what does it mean to be a predicate?
What it means to be a predicate,
Yeah.
just to be something that describes a subject. Like I don't think
Does
that
being not
things
describe a
possess
subject?
being. No, I don't think things
Predicates don't
possess
describe a
being.
subject?
No, predicates do. Being's not a predicate.
Okay, does being
That's
describe a
why I would
subject?
like reject the idea that things possess being. I think that things are in a state of being, right? And what it
Okay,
means to be in a state of being is to exist, and that's just to be existentially quantifiable.
does being not describe a subject?
No,
So if I
being does not
say
describe a
this,
subject.
so if I say I have being, am I describing myself?
Oh yeah, you're describing yourself because
Yeah,
that's
of
just saying
course.
you're in a state of being. It's not to say you
Yeah,
possess
perfect.
being.
But
That's like
yeah,
that's odd.
yeah, but this is why we're tripping up. What does it mean to possess being? Like when you say possess being,
No,
yeah, you're saying
nothing.
all
I
these
think that
properties.
means nothing. You said to possess being.
Okay, what
I
does it
thought
mean to
that
be?
meant
What does it mean to be identical to being?
no, that means to be God.
Okay, what does being identical to being imply?
That you share all the same properties. God shares all the same properties with being.
Okay.
That's not an dispute, but I agree with that.
All right,
I'm saying
perfect.
things
So
which
God is
exist within
identical to
being don't share
being,
all the same
and we are
properties.
not identical to being, correct?
No. We just partake in it.
Okay, what does it mean to partake in being? Just to have being?
It just means to be set of all the. It just means to be part of the set of all real things.
Yeah, what does it mean to be the part of the set? What does that mean?
What does it mean to be part of it? I can't really reduce that further. I just.
Yeah, but I'm
It just
asking,
means to be
what
part
do
of a
you
set.
need? Yeah, but what do you need to do to be a part of this set, which is existence, which is being?
You need to be a subject. You need to be existentially quantifiable. That's really it.
That's okay. Okay, we're just going in circles, bro.
I can't really
Yeah, I
reduce
know.
that.
Yeah, that's why we're going in circles because we're struggling to reduce. We're trying to break down what this means, and we're struggling. Okay. Oh my God, we strayed from the main point so badly. Oh my goodness, we were talking about premise 5 of your argument. Okay.
This does all have to do with premise 5,
Yeah,
though.
it does. But the thing is, like, this just further proves to me that we're not gonna agree on premise 5. Like,
We're
we're just
probably
not
not
gonna
going to agree
agree.
on premise 5.
Which is fine. It is what it is. Did you have another argument that you wanted to present, or?
Now I'm gonna look into the kind of Muslim you are, though. That's pretty interesting. I've never
Alright,
heard
for
of that
sure.
before. I'm only familiar with like the what's that one? It's like Asherite, and then there's another one that starts with
Ash'ari,
an M. Yeah, something like that. Then there's another one that starts with an M, and I can't pronounce that shit.
Maturidi,
Nah, it's like Tazlite, Matazlite,
Mu'tazili, yeah, Mu'tazili.
something like that.
Yeah,
But I'll look into the
the Athari creed, man.
Athari. You said Athari?
Athari,
Athari?
Athari, yes,
I'll look into that
Athari.
one. I'll look into that.
All right,
We'll
for
see.
sure, man. Come back when
All
you
right,
do.
man. I'll catch you, bro.
All right, I'll catch you, man. Peace out. Peace out. Bless.